That this is an important issue for the town, and I'm glad that you're here to listen to what I have to say. By way of introduction, I'm Brandon Butler. I'm one of the spokesmen. I'm one of the spokesmen for the Friends of Schoolhouse Hill. Along with me today is Alan Ball, who's also a member of the Friends of Schoolhouse Hill. Really, I think some of you know us as Alan Ball, Chairman or President of the Heritage Commission, and Brandy Buttrick is Vice President of the Heritage Commission, as well as co-president of the Freedom Historical Society. So, obviously, in those organizations, we have a message. I can tell you that the mailer that hopefully you got in the mail and the flyers that you see around were not, no town funds were used in the production of those materials. They were all financed by the members of Friends of Schoolhouse Hill. The purpose of the meeting today is to inform everybody about and answer your questions about Article 7 in the upcoming town meeting. Article 7 dealing with the renovation of the town office building, and Article 8 the new structure. Discuss any pros and cons with regard to each of those, and have a good discussion about it. Alan will be shortly given a presentation that was designed by Friends of Schoolhouse Hill to outline our position, and then we can get into a question and answer period. The idea here for this is to hopefully reduce some of the questions and the debate in town meeting. I'm not sure it'll work, but at least we're trying. I know it's an important issue for the town, and we're here to try to answer any questions you may have, so that when we go to town meeting, you won't have those addressed again. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to have Alan's presentation. One thing Alan has requested, if you have comments, keep it loose, and if you have questions on a slide, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized if you have a question about a slide. Rather than waiting till the end, if you wanted to go back to a slide, we can address your questions right when the slide appears on the screen. Let's be respectful of one another, okay? If somebody stands up and has a question or an argument, pro-con, let the person finish. Don't shout out or talk out of turn. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I will act as moderator, and I will make sure your question is answered when I call upon. Okay, so let's just be respectful. That's important. We're not trying to mislead anyone with this presentation. We're trying to present an honest and thoughtful response to ensure people fully understand both warrant. Before I turn to Alan, I also want to offer my special thanks, or our special thanks, for the tremendous work accomplished by the Town Office Advisory Committee, particularly Ann Cunningham, and the other members of the Town Office Advisory Committee, Denny Anderson, Mark McKinley, Carrie Buttrick, Ernie Day, and in 2020, Alan was involved in the initial discussions of the Town Office Advisory Committee. We're extremely thankful for their work, their dedicated long hours and endless hours of work to prepare us as a town for the vote on March 16th. So, Alan, over to you.
Thanks, Brandon. This, we believe, is the first picture of the school in 1895 and the classes that met there. At that time, it was two-room class, two-classroom schoolhouse with 4 grades in each floor. There, I'll get it out. In the early 1890s, the state legislature decided that it was inequitable for separate school districts in each town to be funding their own schools, and passed an act that would require towns to fund schools on a town-wide basis. That didn't eliminate the little district schoolhouses, but it forced the towns to at least fund, and for obvious reasons. Why did we choose to live here in Freedom? Well, Freedom, particularly here in the village, it's a quintessential village. It is about a fraction of what it was at one time. At one time, there were 5 stores, four different establishments pumping gas. There was a garage where the post office used to be. There was a mill, cannery, harness and shoe shops all over town, camp shop, diner, dairy farm, bottling milk, creamery, full blacksmith shop, tinsmith, undertaker, coffin maker, barber shop, bank, breeder of purebred Hereford cattle. The Oddfellows and Grange both have a presence here in Freedom Village. And I'm sure I'm forgetting others.
And if you went to our exhibit in the Historical Society, the last 2 years, you would have seen that time period that Alan's talking about.
And many of those businesses we can see in this picture, and I wish we were on a different subject because I'd love to elaborate on that, but there's the schoolhouse right there. In 1940, State of New Hampshire built the highway from the Ospey River, built the bridge over the Ospey River, over by Watson's Field, where 153 turns off now, down to East Freedom, intersecting Old Portland Road, bypassing the village. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. I shouldn't say end, but rather the decline. Many other factors, but certainly that was a large part of it. On top of Schoolhouse Hill, not to repeat for anything, but again, there's 4 of our buildings on the historical register, New Hampshire Historical Register. And I do think it's we do owe it to our past and our future freedomites to preserve and protect all of these structures, in particular this one that we're talking about here. We're concerned about the possible loss of the village as more things come out. This is Article 6. And I put this up, Article 7. Good Lord. That 3rd reading of the 4th grade was not. It's for $1.6 million is the total bond article. Of that, 1.5 will be generated by the sale of bonds, with the other 100,000 coming out of capital reserve fund. It is a 3/5 vote, 60% vote is required where it is a bond.
Alan?
Yes.
Can we have a little more time with the pictures?
Oh, of course. They're just thrown in there for.
I'm sorry, I like looking at the pictures.
Sure, you bet.
Well, I'm going to point out over there, the young man second from the left there in the first row is Phil Bennett. We'll see him later in the different place. We all happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, by keeping the town offices in the schoolhouse, it maintains its vicinity to the other entities in town. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on in the way that when selectmen meetings get too crowded, we merely walk across the road and reconvene our meetings here. Again, if by taking the school out of the village, we will further bypass trips to the village and the appreciation of the village. And it also, by maintaining the offices up there, avoids the inherent reuse or disuse or whatever of that 1895 structure. Now I'll get into some of the concerns. These are concerns that we've kind of heard as time has progressed from the public hearings and such. And one of them is that there's insufficient parking on the Schoolhouse Hill. And it's really only a concern when we have some controversial issue that the selectmen are addressing in any particular meeting. Again, we get to the point where we exceed what Rob thinks we can have at the selectmen's meeting. We need to move, so that kind of solves our parking problem, at least to some degree. There's also additional space to expand the parking to the west of the left-hand side of the Masonic Lodge. There's quite a lot of land there that can be developed into additional parking. Another concern is what about asbestos and lead paint? Inspection of the building during the planning process revealed that there was no asbestos and that any interior lead paint was part of the mitigation and the cost of doing business. I would say it's probably one of the younger classes. Probably the downstairs. All right, another concern. We're not being respectful of town employees by not providing a new and efficient office space for them. Well, that's exactly what's being represented by the renovation of the building. When it's done, it's going to be new office space.
Alan, Coach Alan,
Yes.
right here.
Yeah.
Alan, when you look at the drawings that are proposed for the renovation, the town clerk's office is going to be reduced in size.
Yep.
Because of the lift that needs to be installed for the second floor. So how is that serving the purpose of the office personnel when you are reducing space that she's already at her maximum that she has right now?
Bear in mind that the plans that we're looking at, both the new and renovated construction, are schematics. There'll be an architect, engineer, designer as part of, go back and read the bond, as part of that those monies. And that's when the space will actually be allocated. And we already know in the existing office building that at the time that these plans, the Office Advisory Committee were developing these plans, in that process that the selectmen elected to put the new exterior fire escape on the back of the building, which again on both floors relieves and gives us more floor space. So again, those petitions undoubtedly will be moving around to better utilize the space, both for whether it's Libby's space or Lindsay's and Stacy's. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
I'd like to turn to Ann Cunningham, who will address that question as well.
So when you look at the comparisons, town clerk, in the existing building, the town clerk office is larger than it is in the new building. But when you look at storage, the storage has gone up, and the town clerk will have dedicated private access to storage. And when you look at Libby's office now, she has a lot of storage in her office. That storage space that is adjacent to her office and accessible for her will maybe not add up to 100%, but it is not, just looking at office to office isn't an accurate way of comparing the two spaces.
And could you briefly describe the transition in office space that occurred when they put the new fire escape on the outside of the building?
Well, the town office advisory committee started in late 2020, and we had Sean Bergeron Technical Services do the new design, and it was complete. And then the fire chief read some information where it became clear that the exit from the selectman's office, the second exit with the fire escape, was not to code and it wasn't safe. So during, I don't know how many months it was, 6 months or something.
6 months last summer.
The second floor of the town office wasn't used. And the selectmen, having to face the question of, we gotta use the second floor, it's part of our required office space, decided that they were going to put a fire escape on the back of the building. It's covered, and it's already been put on, it's already been paid for. And in the current plans, it calls for an internal second means of egress from the back of the building. And that space is on the first floor, 99 square feet. On the second floor is 99 square feet. So that's 198 square feet, which is excess. And there's also more space that was the hallway leading up to it. So depending on where and how the final configuration, the final floor plans are created, there could be more space in addition to the 198, maybe another 50 or 60 square feet. So there's more space than, and the committee said to renew, for the new building, it has to be the same size. Now we have a situation where the old building is actually going to be larger than the proposed new building because of this fire escape issue.
Did that address your question, sir?
Well, my other question is that the exterior of the building is going to contain how much office space we're going to have. You've got a building that was built in the 1800s or 1895 as a two-room schoolhouse, not a multi-room municipal office. And right now, if you go live in the office, her safe's going through the floor because of the weight, which means they're going to have to fix the foundation and all of the underpinning under there. And I realize you put in X amount of dollars to fix all this, but some of the numbers aren't jiving up. And I'm concerned that 4 years down the road or 5 years down the road, if we have to start adding extra office space for the water precinct or any other demands on this town, where's it gonna go? It can't go onto that building because of the fact that the exterior can't be expanded.
Well, we'll get to that in a future slide, Darwin, okay, in terms of possible future expansion. But again, it is a box. We are confined to the box that we're dealing with. But again, I think the Office Advisory Committee and John, and again, he's no newcomer to renovating these old buildings. And I think he's come up with a reconfiguration of office space that's quite efficient.
One of the comments you made was that the schoolhouse, the two-room schoolhouse, was not designed to be an office building. Remember that the building is going to be completely gutted on the inside. You have 4 exterior walls, as you mentioned. When you build a new building down on 153 Road, what happens when you get 4 exterior buildings? I mean, it's the same. You got same square footage. One's all on one floor. The other one is on a 2-floor structure. But once it's renovated, it's not going to have the flooring issues you talked about. It's going to be designed with the new office space in mind. It'll be completely new structure on the inside.
Over in Effingham Falls, and have a fair cost comparison to renovating within that box. So that's how That's how the Office Advisory Committee operated. But no, again, and the schematics back there as well that Terry has on the table, you might just want to take a peek at. And matter of fact, the schematic makes the proposed selectmen's meeting area at Effingham Falls look quite cramped.
Yes.
You could just solve that whole problem if you email people and say, we're having this meeting, are you planning to attend? And have people sign up. That way, if you know there's a large crowd, you hold it here.
Well, 9 times out of 10, the selectmen know when they put the agenda together, we've got something that's going to rip a new orifice in something, and we're going to have to do it. Well, for example, this year's deliberative portion of town meeting, right from the get-go, the selectmen said, you know we're going to end up with more people than this room can handle. Let's just pre-plan, go down to the school, have to do it on Saturday. So more times than not, we know. It's those odd times that all of a sudden and if you read the notices, they generally say that if you need particular accommodations or something like that, let us know, and we will hold it at the town hall.
Al, I think you should move on with the presentation. Hold your question, and we'll get to it towards the end, but we have a presentation here that might take a few minutes, so. Thanks, Al.
All right, the office space is noisy, no private conversations, very distracting. There's no efficiency in the space and no security. Well, again, this is true, and with the complete renovation, hopefully that's all going to be taken care of. All of the offices will be private offices with doors. There's a common office area that can be used by the various planning boards, zoning board of adjustment, conservation commission, freedom forestry advisory committee, supervisors of checklists, and whoever else, heritage commission, that might need an office for a couple of hours to do some business. And as far as the security goes, the petition where we just have 2 office doors that open into Libby's and Lindsay's office space, there'll be one door into the office area, and the 2 offices will be serviced through a window, as most towns are doing now to increase that security, decrease the chance of somebody with some malintentions to just wander through the door and cause all kinds of havoc. It's at least, all right, the road up to the town office is steep and dangerous in the wintertime. Well, again, we have a pretty good road crew. I think they do an excellent job of keeping the road up to and the parking lot clear. Randy and I sat down. I don't think that we could think of an instance where there was an accident there. Maybe, although somebody did damage on the lodge building not too long after we put the new siding on. And of course, when conditions get so bad that the hill can't be negotiated, if our winters turn out to be the way they have this winter, it's going to be few and far between. We can certainly close the office. And as we will touch on in future slides here, we do business differently than we used to. It's much easier for the girls to be able to work from home. And, it wouldn't hurt us to pack down on the road and walk our lazy butts up the... I've done that many times. And in this picture here, over on the right, we've got Phil Bennett as a teacher, which I thought was just cool. there's no room for more employees that may be needed as the town grows. Well, again, it's clear if COVID taught us nothing else, it's taught us that we're going to be doing business differently as we move forward. As COVID was approaching, and again, I don't think there was any direct relationship, but as selectmen, we realized that we needed to get our town tax map and information, our assessing data online. The girls were spending way too much time entertaining people like myself, wanting a butters list and looking at tax maps and getting tax map cards and excuse me. So consequently, the selectmen said, well, let's get it online. I was insistent, if we're going to do it, let's get it all online. Let's not be doing tax cards for $1 and all this other stuff. And so consequently, we have all our assessing data, pay our taxes online, even the building permits go into the system, so it makes the assessing process even easier as properties are improved. And I think if we look at the schematic, we'll see that there's an office downstairs that with a door on it that is unassigned. There's another space that's shown as copy printer room, which the stairways coming out of makes that room much larger. Again, another flex space. And an actual office that's upstairs that's labeled as flex room. So there is in this scheme there is room for expansion within the building.
How many people do you think work in the town office building? Total of 5. That's all.
Three
full-time.
Three full-time.
And 2 part-time.
Gary's almost full-time, and that's only because of the number of building permits that he's looking at.
But he's out of the office a lot of the time.
Correct.
Even as his hours increase.
Yeah, but again, that's yeah, this is true. They certainly do need and deserve a modern office space. And again, not to keep repeating Brandy, but when this is done, it will be new office space. The schoolhouse building is old. We encounter further problems such as mold, deterioration, comments the floor is springy. And again, the complete renovation addresses all of these. Going to be a new HVAC system. Create security for the people working there. Sean crawled around underneath the building. He's looked everywhere. He says the structure is good. And again, probably rehabilitated will last easily for another 130 years. Well, it's an upstairs class, I'm sure. There's not enough space in the schoolhouse building. We need a new building. Well, again, and I won't belabor this. I was going to put in the number of employees. I never did get back to change that, Randy.
That's okay. That's why I asked the question earlier, because I remember it wasn't there.
But we won't, we've talked
That's
about,
okay.
that. All right, and these are the schematic plans, and they're terrible.
Hard to see.
They don't translate well.
But I tell you what you can do if you want to take a closer look.
Ann has put on the town website the final reports for Bergeron Technical Services, as well as the Turpin proposal for the new building. Okay? They're on the website. If you go to townfreedom.net and you go to boards and committees, drop-down menu, it says Town Office Advisory Committee. Click on that, and you'll have every single report that the Town Office Advisory Committee has done for the last 4 years. They're on there. And take a closer look, and you'll be able to see the renovation plans. It's hard to project in here, but in any event, if you have questions about that, take a look, and then let us know if you have questions.
Well, we tried scanning the pictures. I eventually called Kate and I said, can you give me a PDF of this, please? And even then, it's difficult to read. But again, there are the security windows that we're talking about. And there's the internal emergency exit stairway that we no longer need, that will be coming out. Okay, if Article 7 is not passed, and Article 8 passes, what do we do with the building? A future use committee was put together back in 2010 to study just such a case when we were doing this 14 years ago. And they deemed that any use other than either residential or for some municipal purpose had a moderate to high chance of failure. And they looked at a lot of stuff.
Carrie actually has a chart in the back that's extracted from that report in a single page. I invite you to take a
You
look.
want a copy of that, Randy?
I do have a copy.
The report is also on the website in the same place
Yeah.
that Randy was mentioning.
I expect a squirrel this time. Oh, let's see, they looked at a craft center, daycare center, adult care, a daycare for adults, fitness center, town activity center, and those seem to be the repurposing uses that might be used. And again, moderate to high chance of failure for all of those. And in addition to that, as we look at this and we see what we have to do to the building and use it for its present use, any other use other than residential or for town office space would require that the building be brought up to code. So in addition to somebody purchasing property from the town, if we could sell it, they'd easily be putting $1 million into that building just to get it to code for any of these kinds of uses.
So here's something to think about prior to voting. If the vote does not, if Article 7 does not pass and Article 8 does pass, the town's committing $1.6 million down on Eaton Road. We still have the issue of putting money into the town office building or the old schoolhouse. I don't know about you, but I do not want that building torn down. So in order to fix it up to code, you're going to be putting money back into that building anyways. Let's finish it once by putting the money into the building and keeping the town offices in the town office building. Yes.
Since it's a historical building though, can't we get grants?
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's a very good point. I'll come back to that. Keep going.
Yes, sir.
I got two quick questions.
Sure.
Almost nap time. Anyways, before this whole thing got started, was there any consideration taken about going with the fire department, the police department, buying it all in one?
And
In 2009, when the last time the town meeting voted bond issues about putting things in different places, everything was defeated. Then, one of those was to put everything down on the,
So it wasn't on the table at one time.
right, but The year following, the defeat of that proposal to put everything down there, the town meeting voted to build what is there now, but they made design decisions, because I went to ask, couldn't we do something with that building? And they said, no, the way that they ultimately situated the building and the septic and the sally port for the police, it can't be expanded.
I was just curious
Yeah.
about that. And my second question is, when will we see the tax increase for the rehab?
I
What?
can't address that.
I'm sorry, the what?
Tax
When will
increase.
taxes go up? Will it go up this year?
When will taxes go up? It won't go up until we actually sell the bonds. So what, if you wouldn't see it on April, yeah, you won't see it on this next tax bill, it would be the following.
Thank you.
And we'll address the cost of either project. Both
Just
both
to
Article 7 and Article 8 are exactly the same appropriations. It was, I think it was $40,000 cheaper to renovate the schoolhouse, the existing office building, than to build new, which $1.5 million is essentially the same number, by two completely different entities. So,
You had your hand up.
Thank you. Did Bergeron Engineering look at the Mason Hall that now Freedom owns that and do a test on the structural sound of that? And then did anyone also consider, since that's a pretty big open space in that hall, did anyone look at maybe building a walk-through bridge from Town Hall into the Masonic Hall, especially for future use, easy walk-through to use that space for anything, extra offices, meetings, etc.?
Bergeron did a structural analysis of the Masonic Temple and found that there were serious structural problems that would need to be addressed if the town were to choose to use it as office space. The mayors have been using it for years, these structural issues are in place, but the town, if they started using it as office space, we would all be taking the liability should something occur. So that's what Sean found, and Sean, if you have heard him speak, he's not wishy-washy at all. I looked at this and I didn't think that would work.
Is that another $1 million problem to repair? Did he mention a dollar?
He didn't pursue
I
that.
don't think so. Okay, I have a pretty good engineering background. I know the issues have been there for almost 100 years, for the lack of a. Anyway, I don't believe that we're talking those kinds of numbers to do the remediation.
Because while we're all working on this and you have a lot of attention to it, and you do want to preserve the Masonic building also as a historical site, that would be really interesting to see if they could be linked by a walkthrough and down the road still, even over 5 years or 6 years, renovate that too and bring it back to life.
Just to
There's your footage.
The Board of Selectmen, having received that evaluation from Sean, had a second opinion, and it came back basically the same.
Yeah.
As for doing something now, town meeting is, everything that's going to be discussed for town
Over the
meeting
years.
is done. So, looking forward, those proposals could be brought forward, but the town report is out, everything's set, there's not going to be.
Let's move on with the presentation. We still got to continue here. So we'll get to all the questions, I promise you.
And of course, if the town was to sell the schoolhouse building, what happens to the bandstand? Obviously, we'd go with the land that it sits on. Who's going to buy it with an easement for the town, have a band concert once, maybe twice a year?
The septic systems, that's not even on town property. I think it's on Bill Carney's house.
Well,
Part of it. Is that correct?
Yes, there is a septic system, but it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to address that?
No, we don't have, you just raised a point about trying to sell the building. Who would buy it if the septic system is on somebody else's property?
Oh, well, okay, let's do a little bit, let's have a little history lesson here. When, back in, oh Lord, 78-ish, 79-ish, the school district, the school board was concerned with life safety and ADA code for the schoolhouse as a schoolhouse. Fortunately, one of the first things they did was first see what we have for land here. And White Mountain Survey did a survey of the property and found out that probably only the front few feet of the schoolhouse was actually on the schoolhouse's property. The rest of it at the time was owned by the Martindales, predecessor to Bill Carney. So what do we do? Well, fortunately, the Martindales were accommodating folks, entered into a boundary line adjustment with the town of Freedom, or should I say the school district, and adjusted the boundary line to get the school on its own lot, and at the same time granted an easement for the septic, for the leach field behind the back, Bill Carney's back. So regardless of whether the town uses it and there's an easement there to have the leach field, or somebody buys that, they would be buying the easement as well. So that's kind of really a non-issue. But yes, it is on Bill's land, but it's there by the way of an easement, allowing it there for that specific purpose.
Thank you, Al.
All right, Freedom's, the master plan. Developed in '86, updated in '16, and recently updated. And I think we quoted right out of that. Some people believe it is cheaper to tear it down than to repair and rehabilitate. Although it's often the case that rehabilitation, that rehabilitating a place is less costly than a new building. Anything you want to say to that?
No, keep going. Here we go.
Okay. By doing the renovation, there is the potential, and I would hope a very good potential, seeing the town of Effingham got a sizable sum of money for their purposes, for their town hall at the Masonic Charitable Institute. So this wouldn't be available. These funds wouldn't be available under the situation of new construction.
So this is an important point. While there's no guarantees, because it's a state historic designated site, the building has the potential to receive grant money from the state of New Hampshire through the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program, LCHIP, some of you may have heard. A lot of towns around here have used it. I know Effingham has, Madison has. So the potential exists to get that money from the state and help to reduce the cost to the town of renovation of the building. There's also the potential with a Moose Plate grant. We received a Moose Plate grant for the snow roller shed. Not a great deal of money, but it's still money nonetheless. So that potential is there. And the last point comes right down to it. There is no grant money available for new construction. I don't care what activity the town has planned for. So once again, an opportunity to reduce the cost of a renovation.
We do need to remember that once complete, the renovation will ensure new, secure offices within the historic structure.
One other thing about the grant money before I forget. On March 14th, the state of New Hampshire is offering a class. 2 members of the Heritage Commission are going to take that class.
to understand and be able to better write grant proposals to the state of New Hampshire. I can tell you that in one of our Heritage Commission meetings, we had the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, Andrew Cushing, come address the meeting, and he has offered his support to the town and helped us and offered to help us in the grant preparation process. So the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance is in strong support of the continued reuse and renovation of the town office building.
And I'm hoping that, Andrew, as we get a designer involved to come up with final plans and specifications for the renovation, I'm trusting that he will be a part of that so that the designer doesn't do something that would be agreeable to a L-shaped grant. Getting to our taxes. Based on the information the selectmen gave us at the bond hearing and such from the bond bank, a 10-year bond at 3.15% interest rate would have a cost of 32 cents per thousand and would translate to $96 increase in your tax bill if your house is assessed at $300,000. And I know I went through and I just took houses around town. I didn't get over on the lake, but just houses around town. And we're basically, most everything's between $250,000 and $350,000. So, and again, in a 15-year bond would translate into $72 increase. And that's for the first year. The years after that, the cost per thousand would decrease, not a lot, but a little bit. But again, $72, but that would be over 15 years. And this building has been the home of Tina Freedom's office and administrative building administration since 1983. It's been 41 years. Somebody going to ask where it was before?
Yeah.
There were 2 little rooms downstairs. This one over here was the town clerk and doubled as the library. And this one down here in the corner, you think it's cramped over the schoolhouse. And this one down was the selectman's office. Come on. And we certainly believe that this alternative is a win-win for three. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how long do you estimate this renovation would take?
About a year.
And where would we go for town offices during that year?
The selectmen are working on that and have been discussing it. One of the plans is to move a portable over onto the 153 site that's being proposed for the new building as a temporary measure because there's sewer and water right there.
And electricity.
And yeah, again, these portables come all hardwired for, if you want one for office space, and they're working on the numbers for that. So I don't have a definitive answer, but yes, one of the alternatives is to move them into this building, either upstairs or downstairs. I don't think that's probably the best use of space, and anyways, it's out of my wheelhouse, but the selectmen are certainly looking at that. Yes, ma'am.
I have more than one question, so I'm just going to put them all out there at one time.
Well, don't let me forget the first one when you get to the fifth one, okay?
If Article 7 fails and Article 8 fails, what happens? Does this come back to us next year at March town meeting? Or would we have a special town meeting, maybe during the summer, when our snowbirds are back, who also may want to vote on this project? That's number one. Number
Okay,
two.
let me answer that one first.
Okay.
Okay, otherwise, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed here. Doris. Third year and the fourth grade was tough for me. I was the only kid with a driver's license. As far as, yeah, I'll keep goofing around. If neither pass, we're right back to where we are today, okay? So again, it's not like we've completely shot ourselves in the foot. The chances of having a special town meeting have to be petitioned to the state. For that purpose, this is not an emergency. So I doubt that the state would allow Freedom to have a special town meeting for this, this issue.
So if they both fail, this comes back to us next year in March.
I would hope so. Again, it would be up to the selectmen to decide as to what to do. There may be something under other business at town meeting that a proposal was brought up to create another committee. I don't know. I mean, there are a number of ways to go about it. I would assume that it would come back. I would assume that we would look at the vote numbers. And if we were 1 or 2% from 60% for the school, and we were 50-50 for the new building, probably the selectmen would bring back one warrant article, the one that was most favored, and see if we couldn't get that. And again, if there was 59% for the new building, and there was only 40% for the renovation, they would probably come back the next town meeting with just one choice. Okay.
The other question I had was if we could know what's going to happen with the tuition agreement with Kennett in 2026, and are we transitioning to a different school system, there may be some cost savings there that might offset what we're trying to do here.
True.
And also with that, class sizes are dwindling, so the remaining SAU 13, Tamworth, Madison, Freedom, maybe there's enough room to juggle classes that the grammar school could be in other schools, and then it's a town office building sitting right down the road.
Okay, I'd like to address that question because I've had a long discussion the other day with our chairperson of the school board. There's absolutely no truth to the rumor that the town of Freedom is considering closing the elementary school. None whatsoever.
No, but
If the decision, hold on a second. If the decision was that they were going to close down and move the kids to Madison in the same SAU, that would be a minimum of 5 to 7 years planning process. So I can tell you that the school board was kind of put aback and surprised by the question that came out of some of the questions we were getting on the Friends of Schoolhouse Hill. So there's absolutely no question that everything's going to remain the same for at least the next 5 to 7 years. I understand your point, but there's nothing in the works. The selectmen know nothing about it. The school board certainly doesn't know anything about it. And I think if you have a question like that, you might want to address it before the school board.
It could take 5 to 7 years to get a warrant article like this passed.
Well, an aside here, the same issue came up in 2010, right? There was a bond issue before the town in 2010. It didn't pass, okay? And here we are 14 years later, and the same issue's coming up again. We've spent $60,000 already through Ann's committee to develop and plan and do all the organization and studies that we've done for the renovation as well as the new schoolhouse. Don't you think it's time to end this? That's why we're pushing so hard with the Friends of Schoolhouse Hill to get this issue passed this year. Other than the fact that, we support the renovation, we also, believe it or not, are very strong supporters of getting our town office staff the space that they need. That really is at the heart of this whole issue, and I sincerely mean that.
Well said. Yeah, you had another one, Doris?
No, that was it.
Okay.
construction?
Realistically, it's probably a year out,
For both, for renovation and?
either one. Yeah, because an architect, engineer, designer, I've got to be careful. I used the word architect in the selectmen's meeting the other night, and Les all but chopped my head off. Anyways, a designer would have to be chosen through the professional selection process. And again, would have to fit into his schedule. If his schedule is anything like mine, I've got a year's worth of work, but I still am fighting to get finished up. So that whole industry, architect, engineers, surveyors, builders, contractors, it's going to be tough. So anyways, get a designer involved, get the design done, get the plan specifications ironed out, and then put it out to bid. And then, I know Sean was talking about plan on a year. You try to expedite the cost of construction goes up. To be finished, we're probably looking at 2 years out.
And not to mention the issues we've already discussed, relocation of the town staff, that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving now, please. Let's keep
Yeah.
moving on the briefing. We'll get.
What's that?
Let's keep moving on the briefing.
Well,
Let's finish. Oh, is it done? Okay, great.
we got that handsome picture.
Fantastic, great. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you. I'll pass it on.
What are you talking about, percentage or whatever? You talking like one vote more to go one way or the other? Is there 51-49 or is it 60-40?
The state requires these bond issues to, used to be 2/3 majority, back in 2009, 2010. It was 2/3 majority for a bond issue. Now it's 60%. Excuse me, 3/5.
So it needs to pass by 3/5. And it's not 3/5 of the town. It's 3/5 of the folks attending town meeting. That's why it's extremely critical that everybody in this room, plus any friends and neighbors, get to town meeting on March 16th at 9 a.m. at the elementary school, because these will be the first to occur on the agenda that day. There'll be 2 votes for Article 7, and then for the renovation, and Article 8 for the new building. So I encourage everybody to attend, otherwise your vote won't be heard, or your choice won't be accepted.
This might be a silly question,
No
but
such thing.
the way I'm understanding, you're saying there's 2 votes. One to vote if you want this, and then a
Correct.
separate one to vote if you don't want it.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
So,
The structure of town meeting is going, or deliberative portion of town meeting is going to be this. Dawn will bring up Article 7, that will be the first warrant article discussed at deliberative portion. Be moved, put on the floor, and discussed. And Dawn says, I'm going to use a broad latitude, because I know that both articles, 7 and 8, are related. He's going to allow that to be discussed up until a call for the question is voted on. Then he will immediately move to Article 8. That will be discussed until a call for the question is voted on. Once both articles, everybody's happy that they've discussed them, he will suspend town meeting and open the ballots. And you will go through the line, go through the checklist, just as if you're voting on Tuesday. And you'll get a ballot for Article 7 and a ballot for Article 8. There'll be 2 different colors, and there'll be a yes or no on each ballot. So if I'm going through, I'm going to mark Article 7 yes, I'm going to mark Article 8 no. Then I'll go through and they'll have 2 ballot boxes, 2 ballot clerks, and those ballots will go in those ballot boxes. Then the ballots have to remain open for a full hour to allow anybody coming in late to vote. Dawn will then reconvene town meeting, go on to Article 9, start that process once everybody at present has gone through the voting line.
2 articles.
Yep,
And you're saying, yes, I want this.
yep.
So you could actually be voting twice for the same thing, because then you're voting on the other piece of paper saying no. Or,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying?
You're still separate one. You're not.
No, the danger lies if everybody goes through and votes yes on both,
Right.
and we end up with 68%
Support.
on both,
Gotcha.
now what do we do?
But we have to give an opportunity to those people who want to hear too. That's really why you have to balance.
Deb,
So
in the
people could in
in the
fact-
case that you described, you're voting yes once.
Right,
You're voting for one thing.
you're voting for one thing.
When you vote no on whichever, if you vote yes on one and no on the other, you're voting yes on one.
Okay.
Okay? You're voting yes on
That's what
one.
I'm talking about the other day.
Well, hopefully people won't vote yes on both because
I
it
think
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Don will carefully explain that in town meeting, so there's not that question. The lawyers have studied this. But there is also a faction of some people in town that might not want either. In other words, they don't want to spend $1.6 million to renovate the office. That's a potential. That'll all be explained in town meeting. But in any event, there will be two separate ballots, or, voting slips that you'll put in the ballot box. Questions? Yes?
So if by chance, the vote goes so that the town office moves to 153, what are the restrictions for the use of this building in the future?
There is.
Whether it's rented by the town to a new tenant or somebody buys it, what are the restrictions for its use in the future?
There are
Historical?
I'm sorry, I can only hear one question at a time.
To remain historical? Is that your question?
No, for use. If it's going to be used and not left vacant, which would cause it to decline quickly, what are the limitations for its use in the future?
There are not.
There are
Yes,
none.
there are.
Thank you.
I now have my chairman of the
Yeah.
planning board hat on.
Yeah.
And if you look at table 305.2 or 1 or 2 in the zoning ordinance, it says village residential. That's where we are. Permitted uses, anything that's in that list, you can do. Special exception uses, they're a little different, a little less residential, a little heavier use. You go to the zoning board and ask for a special exception. It's a notice public hearing, all the neighbors know that you want to put something in there that's different, and they get to talk. If you want to do something like putting in a fitness.
There's a condominiums.
Well, you know, what if somebody with money would want to purchase it and turn it into? It is residential, but there are limits on the number of units that you can have in a building in town, and the village, you probably would need a variance. That's the third level. You want to do something that isn't a permitted use on that table, isn't a special exception use, and you can't get a special exception from the zoning board, you have to get a variance. And that's even a harder bar. But there are some limitations. But the variance is there in order to let people do things that are more than what is usually allowed.
So as it stands, it's a residential building, but an application could be made for a variance. That the town may or may not give permission.
Its current use is municipal offices. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use. It's not one of the things in the permitted uses on that village residential table. But it existed before, so it's a pre-existing use. If it changes, then it goes into that sequence. Is it permitted? Is it special exception? Does it need a variance? And once it changes use, which is what they were talking about with the table of uses, it then has to be brought up to code. And it could be $500,000 to bring it up to code. So if you want to have a daycare or an art center, you have to have a business model, assuming you can get probably a variance, that will allow you to put $500,000 into that building or more, and then still make money on whatever it is you're trying. On a residential option, it would be similar. But then you would have to buy the Masonic temple, except you would only have those 2 little parking spaces, because all the parking for that building. So it would be very hard to turn this building into another use. There's a land use process that would come under it. It wouldn't just happen. Everyone will know what's going on. But there's not a lot of flexibility once you start changing it.
Thank you very much.
And let me put my Parish Commission hat on. And I was answering the question from the perspective of it being on the Register of Historic Places. Are there any limitations? No, there aren't. We wanted to be sure before we put it on the register that we wouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot by not allowing ourselves to reconfigure anything. But no, that's National Register is a different story. And Sue got a lot of technology. Sue's sitting here doing deed research. I love it. She pulled up the deed for the easement for the septic system for the school building from the Martindales, and there is a condition on it, and I'll read it. To be used only for the operation of a public school and for uses in connection therewith, or for the residential purposes or municipal purposes other than the town garage. So there are limitations to that easement.
Thank you for clarifying this. Yes, question.
So I have a question maybe Ann can answer, but this would not be something that could go to the Historical Society and then the town put a certain amount of money in one of our line items every year for maintenance of this building for the Historical Society, like we do for the fire department?
Okay, I'm co-president of the Freedom Historical Society, and I have to tell you that we cannot do that. We can't take that building. One, we don't have any maintenance funds that would support maintenance of that building. But secondly, we have a commitment to the Allen family. They donated that building, the barn, and the property to the Historical Society. We can't take all these buildings as part of the Historical Society. And we're not doing a service to the Allen family and the history of freedom by trying to move over to the...
Oh, no, I'm just saying expand.
What's that?
Maintain both buildings. The Historical Society could grow.
If the town is willing to pay for the maintenance and everything, if the town is willing to bring it up to code, that's what you're saying, bring it
No,
all up.
I'm asking if it has to be brought up.
I don't know what your point cost. Let me ask my
We
co-president.
put a certain amount of money in a line item every year for maintenance of the electric and the whatever in that building.
Well, from the town's perspective, I'll speak from the town's perspective, that's going to be up to folks at town meeting in future years to, it's been customary that the selectmen put an article like that on the warrant as a separate special article for 3 years. If it passes the same for 3 years, they generally will roll it into the general budget. But again, that's how much money we spend, we decide at town meeting, the delivered portion of town meeting. So as long as it's on the warrant, it's certainly a possibility.
It is a change in use. So I can't tell you right now, Doris, whether that would trigger a lot or a little, but it will trigger something. The town is a municipal organization, and the Historical Society is a private 501c3. So it's not like it's going from town to town. It's going to a different organization, and it may be considered a change in use. I think it would be, and that would trigger some kind of change in the code requirements, and that, those are capital improvements. Those are not annual maintenance.
Right.
Light and power and whatever, those are capital improvements to put in fire alarm system or redo the electric or whatever it is. I'm not into that area, but it will cost, there'll be a lump sum in addition to the annual maintenance.
Questions? Yes, Nadine.
My question is a bit of an aside to two warrant articles, but I'm interested to know whether there is any potential in the future if the town offices were to remain in the old structure, old schoolhouse, that eventually the Masonic temple could be at least modestly improved, structurally improved, so that some of that space could be used for any expansion in town office activities, like larger area for selectmen meeting or storage space or something like that.
I probably glossed over, there was a slide in here to discuss that, and I probably glossed over that pretty quick. There is room for expansion on Schoolhouse Hill, okay? There is room directly behind the school to go back. Matter of fact, that back in 2009, one of the alternatives was to put a monstrosity on the back, 2 stories. Part of it was police department with interrogation rooms and a holding room. I mean, it was bizarre. But there is room to expand back, should we need to. I don't believe, as technology catches up here, that we're going to be needing less space. The second thing is, with remediation to the Masonic Lodge, that could certainly be, you know, the remediation's done to address the structural issues that the engineers are concerned with. Except for the second floor, the lodge has a long-term lease with the town. That was part of the gift of the property to the town, was that we retain that, the use of the upstairs. We've lost our function room, but so be it. Yeah.
If for some reason Article 8 passes, would it be possible to move the bandstand?
Don't know. Where would you move it to?
To next to the new building?
Part of the historic designation is its location, Schoolhouse Hill. I mean, that's historically where it's always been.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'd be something the town would have to decide. I don't think it would impact its designation, but, I mean.
And we have to remember that that hill was the center of town.
It was.
The original schoolhouse, which is the little house that sits left of the Masonic Lodge, that was the original schoolhouse. That set over in front of where the bandstand is now. That was there, as near as we can tell, as early as 1802. We know that from a highway district description. In 1830, the church, the Masonic Lodge, was built. In 1820, Bill Carter's house was built as a center chimney cape built by Joseph Burbank. Amos Toll Jr. owned that. That was when he built the church, the Masonic Lodge. And then, of course, in 1895, the new school was built. The old school was moved in front of the Masonic Lodge. School was held in the building in front of the Masonic Lodge until it was moved over to its current location.
Well, what's the bandstand built?
But about 1900 was when the bandstand was constructed. There was a lot that happened in that 1895 to 1905. The second story of Bill Carney's house, the center chimney was blown off. They built the second story on that with 2 chimneys. So a lot happened around the turn of the century. I don't know.
How many people know that Joseph Burbank is the father of David Burbank, who went out west in California, became
You're good your presentation.
But David Burbank is the founder of Burbank, California. The town is designated, it was named on his behalf. Yes.
We have a question back here.
Yeah, Sean.
Yes. This is another question on if both articles fail. Is the what kinds of requirements do we have? I mean, right now, I'm guessing, because of some of the things that are needed in the renovation, that we are not ADA compliant as we would need to be. So that would be a concern if both fail. We're in a town where more and more people, as some of us age, are not going to be able to go up to the second floor to do things. And so yeah.
Now, I understand that ADA obviously is being addressed in the renovation, but as you point out, if it's not, what happens? Well, that's another town decision that's going to have to be made concerning how we want to upgrade this building or whatever we need to do depending on its future use. But yes, that would be an issue that will have to be addressed.
Currently, to satisfy ADA requirements, the tax collector has been on the second floor for a number of years. Anybody that can't make it to the second floor, the tax collector has to come downstairs to service that individual. Same way with Gary and the zoning and building code, building inspector. Selectmen, same way. Somebody shows up at selectmen's meeting. We need, I need to get to the selectmen's meeting. I have a wheelchair. Okay. We move over here and meet here. So that's how it's currently being held. And again, we had a problem with the exit stairway to set the fire escape. The selectmen needed to address that so we could continue to use the upstairs.
Any other questions? Okay, one thing we touched on briefly, take it for homework if you will. How many people understood before you came to this meeting there was a town master plan? How many people read the town master plan? I encourage you to take a look at it. It was revised in 2020, and a chapter was added, chapter 5, historical resources. Let me just briefly read the first paragraph of that chapter. Freedom has retained much of its historic character and buildings because the main road passes by the village. As in any old town, structures and sites enable us to see a town's history. They connect us to the past, but they are fragile and can disappear because of a single decision or action. The town master plan has a lot of information in it, and the town respondents to a survey that was done in 2014, I just want to mention that 74% of the respondents back in 2014 said they wanted Freedom Village to remain the same quiet residential village it is today. And also to maintain and preserve historic buildings, 73% of town respondents wanted to maintain and preserve our historic buildings. So I encourage you to take a look at the town master plan before you go vote. I encourage you, and that by the way is also on the Freedom Town website, townfreedom.net, under resources, which is the final tab to the right. Drop down menu, you'll see Freedom Town Master Plan. Take a look at it, please read it. And also, as well as the town report. And then, once you've read both of those, go to the town meeting and make your vote, and then you decide for yourselves which way you want to go. But the master plan, we have a master plan for a reason, and the people that live in Freedom want to preserve and protect the heritage and historical resources. I can be honest with you, one of the great reasons I moved here, besides marrying my wife Carrie, who's a Godfrey, my family, I've been actually in Freedom since 1980, although I spent 41 years in the federal government. We came back and I retired. The reason we retired here is because we love Freedom, and we love it the way it is. I don't live in the village, I live on Cushing Corner Road, but I still love the village. And if you take any one of the historical walks that we presented last summer through our exhibit that we did on historic Freedom Village, you'll see my passion for the historic buildings. And we walked from the Historical Society all the way down to the post office, and we talked about every single building. One of the first stops is Schoolhouse Hill and the 4 historic buildings involved. So please carefully consider your vote, because if we vote the wrong way, and we lose the town office capability in that building, we're never going to get it back. We're never going to get it back. And I just can't imagine our town offices out on 153, where people went to the town selectmen and were complaining about the traffic on 153. It went on and on and on about the volume that was increasing. The bridge traffic, when they were working on the Osprey Bridge on Route 16, was directing traffic through Freedom. Well, it hasn't stopped because people found that it's a more direct, more scenic route to Conway. I can't imagine putting our town offices buildings on 153. Matter of fact, if I may, let me just say a couple of things here. The town meeting went on and on about people complaining about the speed. People aren't going 35 miles an hour through the area where we're planning on it. I would say 90% of the town voter or town people that want to have access to the Murray property would be a left-hand turn into that property, cross traffic. Not to mention, Alan brings this up all the time, it's a state road. New Hampshire DOT would consider, since it would be commercial use now, whether or not we have to put in a left turn lane to turn into that property. So, like I said, it changes the whole sense of place that I think we're expecting here in the country. So, thank you for attending today.